Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining our next Race to Zero session at the conference. We're very glad to have everybody here and very excited to hear some of the great stories of best practice from around the world from some of our Race to Zero signatories. In this session, we are going around the world. Again, for those of you who were in our last session, we'll be hearing from the Philippines. We'll be going to Colombia. We'll have a presentation from the United Kingdom, and then we'll head over to Chile to hear from another one of our net zero signatories there. Hopefully we'll have some time for questions after each presentation. If you have any questions for our speakers, please use the chat, put your questions in, and I will put those questions to each speaker as they speak or once they've finished. Welcome everyone. I'm not going to do too much more. My first introduction is to a gentleman called Marion. Marion is coming to us from De La Salle University, Dasmarinas. For those of you who were in the first plenary, we will have heard from them already as an International Green Gown Award winner. Marion, I'm going to hand over to you.
Good evening, everyone from the Philippines. Well, the Philippines, where our university is based, is considered to be one of the most vulnerable countries in the world in terms of climate change impacts. Our vulnerability stems not only from an increase in climate change hazards or climate-related hazards, like if you remember in 2013, which is Typhoon Haiyan, that killed more than 3,000 individuals, or the predicted and observed sea level rise in our coastal areas. Take note that in the Philippines, 63% of our population live in coastal areas. But as a developing country, we are also vulnerable economically and socially, in which these climate-related hazards and disasters take a toll mostly on the poor. And just like any other developing country, the path of development adopted by our national government still follows the path adopted by developed countries more than 50 years ago. And we all know that this path is highly extractive of natural resources and produce lots of pollutants and greenhouse gases. We all know that taking that same path and lifestyle will inevitably result in the creation of more greenhouse gases. That's why there is a need to have a paradigm shift of values and mindsets of our leaders and citizens. This is where our role as universities come into play. But when we started our path to carbon zero or to zero carbon 10 years ago, our foremost question as a university is, can environmental education save the world? When we assess our current environmental and climate change education programs in the university at that time, we realized that the incremental and piecemeal integration of these programs in our curriculum will not be very effective or are not effective. We realized that when we want to change our students' mindsets, who will become future leaders and citizens, we need to change their values. And when we want to change their values, we need to change their habits. And when we want to change their habits, we need to change what reinforce these habits. And for us to be able to reinforce the habits that we want, consistency is very crucial. Therefore, environmental education should go beyond the classroom. It should go beyond the topics in the courses or questions or in the graded assessments. We realize that what we teach to our students inside the classroom should be exemplified foremost by the university through its policies, its operations, its research agenda and direction, and its curriculum. We take environmental education to an extent that we embrace the slogan, practicing what we teach. We believe that a change of values is important, and this change can only be made when the university has consistency in its actions, both inside and outside the classroom, and to the greater community where the university belongs. That's why when we launched our program, Blackout Green In, Making Green Greener, 2011, we aim to create a zero carbon or a carbon neutral university. It is a university-wide program that aims to transcend sustainability in all levels of the school activities, from policies and processes to research and extension programs to curriculum and student activities. It is a systems-wide approach using systems thinking application, but using climate change as the banner program. The program is very simple. First, we measure the university's carbon footprint, then reduce this carbon footprint using two approaches. The first is reduction, and the second is sequestration. Sequestration involves conducting tree planting activities, particularly native Philippine trees, with all our partner government and private institutions for planting sites and maintenance of these trees. From these planted trees, we measure how much carbon was sequestered and deduct this from our carbon footprint. To date, the university has planted more than 150,000 trees since 2011 all over our archipelago and contributed in neutralizing almost 15% of the university's carbon footprint. The bigger chunk of challenge goes to reduction, which involves an institution-wide policy or strategy. This involves first institutionalizing the program through a policy, instituting policies on solid waste management, for example, energy efficiency, and polluters pay principle in transportation. Then implementing reduction of carbon in office operations, reduction in efficient use of resources, and making sure these programs are integrated in personnel evaluation, faculty and staff development, and formation. And lastly, integration to curriculum, not only in classroom topics, but also in student activities, formation, co-curricular and extracurricular activities, together with integration in research and community extension. We even, for example, created a scoring tool for campus student organizations to measure how sustainable are their activities and award these organizations who embrace sustainability or who have less carbon activities. Some examples of these reduction programs that we are doing are the following. Let's say gradual replacement of our inefficient lighting systems with LEDs, maximizing the use of daylight, allotting 40% of our university land use to greens, which enhance the university's microclimate and reduce energy from air conditioning units. The Philippines is a tropical country. Intensive solid waste collection, which produce income for environmental programs, and banning entry of single-use plastics, which further reduce expenses on solid waste disposal. We also installed solar lights on walkways and streets. We developed contracts with energy providers to provide 60% to date of our energy resources coming from renewable energy. Green purchasing policy and accrediting suppliers that embrace university sustainable practices. And we've been doing this since 2011. But I want to take note that implementations of these programs are not walks in the park. It had and still has a lot of challenges. The greatest challenge from our experience in embracing a zero carbon campus is not technology, neither policies nor plans, for these things can easily be done. The greatest challenge based on our experience actually is organizational behavior. How do we move people in our organization to embrace these changes? Because embracing these changes create inconveniences and a change in habits. And while you are doing this, I will tell you that you will be the most unpopular person in the campus. But to be able to overcome that, there are 5 important points that you might consider. And this is based on our experience. First, administration commitment by identifying champions for this program shall make your work easier and faster. Number 2, ownership of the community of the program is very crucial. Making sure that the efforts made is not for an individual, an office, or a set of people. Ownership to the recognition and program by all the stakeholders is a crucial component to the success of the program. And we can create ownership by number 3, regular reporting of the efforts done by the units and the university as a whole. And number 4, joining competitions like the Green Gown and sharing with all stakeholders any recognitions. In our university, for example, we started in 2011 in joining national competition for the national search for sustainable campuses. And we won as a national champion during that year. And I think that's one of the crucial turning point that made our work easier because of an increased support from the administration. And I think number 5, also crucial, is a continuous staff and faculty development. For they are the frontliners to our students, and they will be able to be an important variable in any curricular program. Our commitment is to have a zero carbon by 2030, and we hope to reach that with the same fervor and support from our stakeholders. My question a while ago, can environmental education save the world? Our answer from this is it depends up to what extent and up to what form do we want to take environmental education. Up to what extent do we take up environmental education in our universities? Our answer to that question will tell us if our program will be successful. That's why we are making our commitment and joining other universities globally in the Race to Zero initiatives for universities and colleges. And by being part of this initiative, we are able to, number 1, set a goal or standard for ourselves in achieving zero carbon. Number 2, provide us an opportunity not just to share our experiences, but also more importantly, learn from the experiences and best practices of others. And number 3, we are able to join the call of other academic institutions on the immediate need, the crucial need to reduce carbon emission and to reduce the risk of climate-related hazards and disaster, especially for the Philippines. Good evening and thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Marlon. That is very true, and a lot of good work to do there and changing hearts and minds to get people on board with this agenda and pushing through being unpopular into that space where make a better future for everyone. There is a question for you in the chat. It's from a master's student of energy economics at Makerere University in Uganda. He would like to clarify whether more how you're managing wastes, especially municipal solid waste.
Okay, first there is a national law that was established in 2000. We call it the Ecological Solid Waste Management Law, or the Management Act, in which all municipalities are required to segregate their waste. But during that time in 2000, before we implemented the solid waste management program, every month, every month we have, and during that time, year 2000, we have about more or less 10,000 students, and we generate about 24 dump trucks or garbage trucks, big garbage trucks of solid waste every month, and it cost us a lot in terms of operating expenses. So what we did was we established our own material recovery facility in the university. It's a collection site, it's a storage site for waste in which we segregate our waste. And we established a relationship with local recycling institutions, or we call it junk shops, in which we can provide the recyclable materials from the university. And it generates income. Aside from that, point source garbage from the laboratories, from different sites in the university, encourages segregation. And by doing so, we were able to reduce the 12 dump trucks every month in 2016 to about 4 dump trucks in a month with 16,000 students. So imagine the reduction in the cost and the problem in terms of solid waste. So to be able to answer your question, I think there's a need really first to characterize the waste. generated in the campus, and try to identify how we were assimilate those waste, residual waste, recyclable waste, and compostable waste. But at the same time, segregation is only a downstream approach. No, we need also to do upstream, like reduction. No? So we banned single-use plastics inside the campus. We banned the plastic drinking straw and plastic bags inside the campus. And it significantly also reduced the non-recyclable waste coming into the university. So it's a combination of reduction and proper segregation of waste. But of course, I would tell you, it took years to be able to integrate that behavior, constant reinforcement and constant education, especially to incoming freshmen and students. I hope I was able to answer your question.
Excellent. So yeah, he said, thank you very much. So I think you've answered that question. It's excellent. We've got, probably don't have any time now for any more questions, but if you do have any questions for Marlon later on in the session, please put them in the chat, but just specify who you'd like to ask those questions to. Thank you for that, Marlon, for that excellent answer. Next, we're going to go all the way to Colombia. Alejandro Martínez is a professor and a researcher at Universidad Ian. He is going to present to us next. So I'm going to hand over to you, Alejandro.
Hi to everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm José Alejandro Martínez Sepúlveda. I'm a professor in the Universidad, a university in Colombia. You know, Colombia is a beautiful country in South America. And Universidad is a private non-profit higher education institution founded the past century in 1963 as a business school and recognized by the Education Ministry of Colombia around 2006. The university is constituted by faculties, departments, and institutes. And the most important was or is the mission of the Universidad. And the mission is to contribute to the comprehensive training of people and stimulate their entrepreneurial aptitude in such a way that each action contributes to the economic and social development of the peoples. Yeah? Since its foundation, the entrepreneurship was the engine, the core, the heart of the existence of the university, which is very important considering that all the training process that existed in Colombia 70 years ago as a developing country were focused on teaching to get employment, yes, not to create companies or new companies. The university was disruptive because it was not created from business alliance or from social interests of senior corporate executives as a similar business schools in different parts of the world. It was created for a dream of 5 professionals, very capable and with great vision. Yeah. It is important to mention that the entrepreneurship idea in the university has not only been seen a creation of companies, new companies, is the act of making that things happen, the ability of people to look at the environment and seek change, and the change as a goal. But well, in the last 15 years, the university has reflecting a lot about a new vision around the final objective. The entrepreneurship is still the foundation, the basis, or should we switch to the sustainability? Was a wonderful, big question, really. One university that teaching every day about the change, shouldn't it change too? Well, these reflections occurred at a time when the university has just completed updating and modernization its main campus, urban campus, into the capital city, Bogota, and with blocks of financial companies and one very crowded area. And the construction that had just been completed included aspects of bioarchitecture with national capabilities, but the university think in the second part of this construction, how to create a real model, a real example, how to create a excuse to change our productive areas in Colombia. We need a real model for the production and consumption issues. And the result of thinking about sustainability made use adjust our most important goal. In 2016, we create a higher proposal to contribute to comprehensive training and sustainable entrepreneurship, considering research, leadership, and innovation fundamental elements in the generation of abundance for the humanity. A lot of circular economy concept input in the activity, and based on higher proposal, we began to act on different fronts to be consistent with our dream, mainly in climate change actions. In 2018, we were with the president of the general room in the training of climate reality project in Mexico. And from there, we committed ourselves to being facilitators of action processes around climate change in our country, in our city, in our area, in our neighbor. We included training, researching, extension process, a lot of work with our students on undergraduate and graduate programs. We got the design for the new building to be developed by William McDonough, one of the fathers of cradle to cradle idea, and that gave us more impetus to move forward. But we also create more commitments on the positive influences of sustainable and resilient construction in our country. The legacy building has been a excuse to carry out a 6-year transformation of the Colombian construction sector hand in hand with the circular economy and the climate change action and activities. The climate fight has always been as a transversal work, thinking in the production, the processes, and how to improve and to increase the efficiency of the use of the resource, thinking in our natural capital, really. In 2020, the past year, we defined our sustainable entrepreneurship policy as an institution, and we defined that we want to measure our carbon footprint, but not just stay here. It's not only the measure. We want to be carbon neutral institution. And this year, 2021, with the inauguration of the legacy building, first building inspired by circular economy in Latin America, dedicated to academic activities, and that includes highest sustainability standards in its construction. And with the development of the greenhouse gases inventory, we have taken steps in the direction that we consider right. The measurement of the carbon footprint of the Universidad was based on the ISO 14064 methodology. Do the strategic alignment with the institution, with the principles of the standard, the relevance, the completeness, the consistency, the transparency, and the precision. the results of the greenhouse gas inventory in tons of carbon dioxide equivalent was 205 tons in the scope 1 and 2. Yeah, and the intensity was 22.82 kilograms of carbon dioxide per equivalent per student. These results were verified by Econtech, is a Colombian institute, during the month of April of this year, and we start with the record cause after this process, this favorable concept of the process for this institution. We are offset our carbon footprint through bonds that protect the biodiversity of our country. We buy carbon bonds from one area, a hotspot of biodiversity, and we are currently about to receive the carbon neutrality certification of this institution. I talk about it, about this story cause. We arrived to the climate change activity mainly later, we think. Is one thing for 5 or 4 years ago, since 4 years, but we think that with the idea, with the motivation as institution, with all the students, with all the professors, with all the processes interested in this action around this topic, we create change, powerful change. And example, I think that one of the most important things for our institution is to be a model for other better processes in other industries, in other universities. In Colombia, we have only 2 universities. One collect the UPB in Medellin, and us with the inventory of the greenhouse gas verified. Yeah, only 2, and only 2 taking the way of the carbon neutrality. But it's not easy, but it's not impossible. It is possible, and with our resources, with our motivation, with our activities, the student activities, we have to change and to create a sense to motivate another institutions. Come here, go ahead. It's easy. Come here. I think that is the main core of our words. I want to talk about a dream. I want to talk ideas, but I want to talk about actions, and actions, simple actions, little actions, but with more and more people, we can to change. Yeah, we have to be entrepreneurs, not only new companies. We want to change the world with the participation of the people. Thank you so much, and well, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Excellent. Thank you, Alejandro. That was very good. And I hope that you can inspire more universities in Colombia to join you in the race to zero. We've got a quick question from Ian. How has signing the race to zero helped you move your university to the next level?
Okay, well, it's important question, because it's not only about our dreams and okay, the university have a dream and go ahead. No, it is to create a commitment with the environment, with other institutions, with other areas of our country and our world. And the race to zero is a excuse similar as the EAN Legacy project to improve our capabilities and to change all of our projects and to be more I don't know, more big challenge. If only we use our ideas or objectives, maybe we have some good good achievements. But with you use Race to Zero or another spaces to create more and more motivation as institution, as association of universities in Colombia, for example, it's a good thing to create a more dynamic activities, and I think that Race to Zero was a good point to create more enthusiastic motivation in our students and in our professors and in the all the high direction in the institution.
Excellent. Great, thank you. And your Dream Ideas Action is a lovely call to action for the universities around the world, I think. If there aren't any more questions for Alejandro, thank you for that. Very inspirational. I really do hope we can hear more about the rest of the world joining you in your dreams for a better future. Our next presenter is unable to join us, unfortunately. She is Professor Pamela Gillies. She's the Principal and Vice-Chancellor at Glasgow Caledonian University in the UK. She has, however, sent us a video, so I'm going to share that with everyone. Unfortunately, Pamela won't be here to answer any questions, but I'm sure that you'll be inspired by her video.
We are all well aware that climate change presents an existential threat to humanity and to biodiversity on our planet, and affects the most vulnerable in our societies most severely. Sir David Attenborough has convincingly argued for the need for evidence-based system-wide changes if we are to deliver meaningful contributions to climate change in the coming years. We must all play our part as individuals and across our organisations. And in this talk, I will provide a brief overview of Glasgow Caledonian University's actions as we race towards zero carbon emissions. I will begin by looking at our campus, the built environment and services offered. I will then outline our education specifically focused on the climate emergency, followed by our applied action-based research work, and finally comment on the collaborative partnerships and networks that we work with to effect change. We began our race in 2015 when the United Nations issued the Sustainable Development Goals as a blueprint for peace and prosperity across the planet. And these goals provided a clear guiding framework to drive an ambitious agenda for environmental sustainability. Our university's drive to reduce our carbon footprint is documented in a detailed annual report on our campus-wide efforts, including our recycling initiative, and we have sent no waste to landfill since 2015. We have a combined heat and power system installed on campus, which produces energy for the national grid. We are part of Glasgow City's tree planting initiative. We've introduced support for decarbonised travel to work, including an extensive cycling support initiative, and we were Scotland's first cycle-friendly campus. We offer sustainable food and drink offers on campus, and we've made substantial capital investment, recladding our core buildings with a view to cutting gas use by 66%. And finally, we've created a state-of-the-art recycling centre on campus. All of this is part of our drive to have net zero carbon emissions as a university by 2040. And in the coming years, we are looking to have a car-free campus, a zero emissions transport fleet. Our new buildings will be carbon negative, flying will be reduced, and there will be more remote learning and teaching where appropriate. Given all the effort and resources invested, we are pleased to have been awarded Eco Campus Platinum status for the second year running and awarded first class by the People and Planet University League for our environmental and ethical performance. In 2017, we became the first university in the world to design our research strategy to contribute to delivering the Sustainable Development Goals. And in June 2021, the United Nations recognized how deeply we have embedded work on the goals across everything we do in our university by highlighting the way we had integrated them. And the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs particularly commended the university's 2030 overall strategy for using the Sustainable Development Goals as not only the framework within which our education, research and knowledge transfer, our international and civic activities as the University for the Common Good are delivered, but also for our focus on social innovation and impact. Good citizenship, social justice and social mobility, and a commitment to climate change action all lie at the heart of our educational programmes. All of our undergraduates engage in our Common Good curriculum, which introduces them to the Sustainable Development Goals, but which also allows them opportunities to volunteer in local initiatives. And the most popular of these is to work as mentors in the Caledonian Club for pupils and families from the most disadvantaged schools in Glasgow, building life skills and opportunities for young people. And since 2008, more than 20,000 children and 4,000 parents have come into the university to engage in this work. The most recent focus of the club is working with primary school pupils and their parents on climate change, what it is, the science behind our understanding, and how they as young people can help raise awareness of the problem. Glasgow Caledonian University has been a member of the Global Compact since 2013, and we are members of the Global Chapter Council of the United Nations Principles for Responsible Management Education, called PRIME, whose mission is to promote awareness and embedding of the Sustainable Development Goals into business education, with SDG 13, climate action, at its core. One of PRIME's current projects is to roll out carbon literacy training to students around the world. And at our London campus, Professor Natasha Radcliffe-Thomas and the team at the British School of Fashion are focusing on socially conscious fashion and sustainable luxury. And we were the first university to be signatories to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation initiative to make London the world's first zero carbon city by 2030. Across the university, we have core programmes on the climate emergency and sustainability, and a focus on systems change and social innovation. And the work of our UNIS Centre is inspired by our Emeritus Chancellor, Professor Mohamed Yunus, and his commitment to the 3 zeros: zero carbon, zero unemployment, and zero poverty. One of the jewels in our crown is undoubtedly our Climate Justice Centre, with its dedicated programmes in climate justice. Founded with the support of Dr. Mary Robinson, Chair of the Elders, the research programme is extensive, but focuses on the relationship between gender justice and climate justice, and on adaptation and resilience and international development on issues from safe water to safe energy and energy justice. The Centre is led by Professor Tahseen Jaffrey, whose research also focuses on climate displacement and migration, access to climate finance, and just transitions in urban and rural settings. Professor Jaffrey also plays a key role in policy development and is an advisor to governments around the world. More recently, the Centre has helped shape the Scottish Arctic Research Programme and is a member of the University of the Arctic Network. Tahseen has been praised by the past President of Iceland, His Excellency Olafur Ragnar Grimsson, for her recent Arctic Policy Mapping Report. So it's not surprising, therefore, that Tahseen chaired the inaugural World Forum on Climate Justice at our university in June 2019, and we will hold the second World Forum in September this year. The university contributes to climate-related research across a broad range of other areas, including the healthy impact of canals in urban environments, research on the urban climate, on sustainable cities and countries, nature-based solutions and green infrastructure, water quality, an easy-to-use carbon calculator for business. And we are developing a prototype scooter for use in India, which includes a 3D printed electric motor powered by a solar battery and led by Professor Farag from GCU's Smart Technology Centre. Most of what we do in our research and educational programming is done most effectively in partnership with others around the world. And if there's one thing the COVID-19 pandemic and vaccine development has emphasised, apart from the devastating impact of social inequalities, is that swift progress really can be made in solving challenging issues through collaborative action. And in partnering with the Clinton Global Initiative University Network, we are allowing our students more opportunities to focus on the climate emergency and how to make a better world through practical action. And our students have responded by taking a leading role themselves in setting up a Sustainable Goals Society in their Students' Association and a GCU Extinction Rebellion group. And we are hoping to attract young leaders of today to the Global Climate Change Conference of Youth at Glasgow Caledonian University, for which we have made a very strong application. And that will inspire the young people of the city of Glasgow, pupils in schools and students alike, and be led by the voice of our young, and a perfect event leading into COP26, which of course is to be held in Glasgow in November. The university will be involved in two major events at COP26, featuring our friends Mary Robinson and Mohammed Yunus. And COP26 will also feature our Chancellor, Dr. Annie Lennox, OBE, who is outspoken about the climate emergency we face and who provides inspirational leadership for our students and alums. Annie designed this image for the First Minister of Scotland's Christmas card in 2019. And in her own words, delivered at a closing address at a recent CBI Race to Zero conference following the summer G7 meeting, she noted that we become disconnected from nature in recent decades and we have ignored the destruction happening under our noses, the destruction that will affect everyone and everything on our planet. And of course, it will be the poorest and the weakest amongst us who will suffer soonest and most. The climate emergency requires swift, sophisticated response across so many domains at once that collaborative, joined-up approaches are vital. The cost of the climate emergency to our economies and the well-being of all living creatures and plants on our planet will far outweigh the cost of the COVID pandemic we are experiencing today. And if we don't act now, will further reduce our resilience to the many world threats hovering on the horizon. Universities have a key role to play in partnership with others in finding solutions and in creating the next cadre of climate emergency thought leaders and policymakers. Glasgow Caledonian University will actively continue to contribute because, as Chancellor Lennox has said, we are in the middle of a global emergency.
Those are excellent and inspiring words from our colleagues in Scotland there. Alejandro, thank you for sharing the link to your legacy project. That's really helpful if anyone would like to do a bit more in terms of that. I've got a question for all our speakers, but I'll ask it at the end. I'll give you some time to think about it. But just in terms of the language that we use, somebody on our chat has just asked whether how we can get universities to dream better. And that is just coming on from Alejandro's session. So have a think about that for anyone else. If anyone has got any quick questions before I hand over to Ignacio Sánchez, do let us know. Otherwise, we'll move straight on. Ignacio joins us. He's the rector from his university in Chile. So we're back to South America. Really looking forward to hearing what projects you are doing. Ignacio, over to you.
Thank you, Claire. Good afternoon. It is a real pleasure to participate in this Race to Zero workshop and have the opportunity to learn about our universities, about what they have done in terms of the route to zero emissions. I'm very happy to share with you our experience at the Universidad Católica in Chile and how we are working to accomplish our commitment of being carbon neutral by year 2038. In the audience is joining us Marion, which is the real champion of this initiative in the university. Different initiatives in a variety of topics have guided our path to sustainability. Some of them are, of course, the creation of a sustainability office in 2011, joining the Sustainable Campus Network, the creation of a Sustainable Developmental Institute, the installation and constant growth and recycling systems of campus, the publication of 5 sustainable reports under international GRI standards, and the recent creation of a major in sustainable development, all of which attest our commitment with a sustainable future. In 2020, we published our new 2020-2025 developmental plan, where we defined a transversal culture of sustainability that consider the incorporation of courses in our education plan that address the culture of sustainability in our institution. An increasing number of students and teachers involved in research tasks of sustainability, a major coordination of the different centers and faculties, and the establishment of very important sustainable standards in our own management and infrastructure. The climate change scenario has not only increased evidence about socio-environmental problems, but it's also made us more aware of individual and institutional responsibilities. Our university has taken up these challenges with enthusiasm under the guidance of Pope Francis through the encyclical Laudato Si, who invite us and inspire us to care for our common home. In the search for solutions to the challenges posed by climate change, the experience and knowledge generated in universities is absolutely essential. We have a very important role in showing society based on what we have done in our own campuses and also in our university territories, that is possible to develop a sustainable developmental plan and model. Participatory process for the development of strategy for climate action. In July 2019, in the context of COP25, we became the first Chilean educational institution to declare a climate emergency and to commit to carbon neutrality to the year 2038, when we will celebrate our 150th year anniversary. This date is 12 years before our country's carbon neutrality commitment. Since then, we have carried out a participatory process within the university that has resulted in diagnosis and proposals for the areas of transportation, energy, waste, construction, water, biodiversity, research, curriculum, and culture. And thus, in the creation of a strategy of climate action aimed at achieving carbon neutrality by the year 2038. Additionally, we incorporated the issues of water and biodiversity to address those elements related to adaptation and resiliency in order to face climate change. This strategy is now under review and will be published during the second semester together with an update of our sustainability plan. The process has been guided by a Council of Climate Action chaired by our provost. Its work has been organized into 10 thematic work groups that include the participation of an entire university community, students, professors, staff, and everyone that do work, teach, or learn in the university. Also, during 2020, a whole course of more than 100 students work on evaluating and elaborating proposals to allow Catholic University to move towards carbon neutrality. We have had other participatory spaces such as conference, workshops, and drawing contests. We currently have an engagement process named It is Time for Sustainability, It is Time for Climate Action, focused in bringing the strategy closer to the community and motivating their commitment to achieving carbon neutrality. Having a carbon neutral goal means to achieve a result of zero in the net GHG emissions that Catholic University emits, captures, and compensates. Therefore, our efforts are primarily focused on reducing emissions through greater efficiency in our operation and in creating climate and sustainability awareness for the development of sustainable habits. A second stage includes the development of a strategy to increase the CO2 emissions capture capacity in our territories and to compensate for all activities that cannot be reduced otherwise. Catholic University carbon footprints and projections. Since 2013, we have quantified our CO2 emissions annually. In 2018, Catholic University emitted a total of 42,000 tons of CO2. The greatest impact on emission comes from community transportation, almost 68% of total emissions. Energy consumption otherwise represents 29%. The remaining 3% of emissions are distributed between waste, water, and acquisition. With this accumulated data, we calculated the university emissions projection and we established a carbon budget from 2018 to 2038, which defines the maximum amount of CO2 emissions for CO2 emission GHG that our university is allowed to emit for a certain period of time. Some definitions for this process. Climate action is an active way of expressing our commitment and care for the planet, its health, and thus the health for all forms of life. To achieve carbon neutrality, we established the following actions. First, to define partial goals every 6 years, monitoring progress every 3 years to adapt to new potential challenges. Second, to commit carbon neutrality for scope 3, since daily transport and long distance trips generates the greatest impact. Third, the focus of our effort on reducing emissions through projects and technological replacement, as well as through education in order to generate a challenge on habit in the community. Fourth, to incorporate climate action objectives as associated with adaptation and resiliency. This implies taking action on water and biodiversity issues. Fifth, to promote actions that contribute to cultural changes and that promoting training and research in climate action. Sixth, to implement a diagnosis and action plan for campuses and progressively incorporate research stations and centers. Seventh, to launch a process to study the captures and potential projects that increase them and create a compensation plan to neutralize those emissions that cannot be reduced because they are fundamental university activities. Other challenges. The carbon neutrality challenge requires our constant work in developing innovative solutions to reduce emissions while promoting campuses as living laboratories. We are working with our research center and regional stations to jointly implement projects to increase their emission capture capacity while preserving and generating those spaces. The challenge is to accomplish a cultural change in our institution that influences and permeates Chilean society. We will continue working so that new generation live in our country where they can fully develop. This is one of the greatest tasks of the universities. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ignacio. That's very challenging. We've got a question from the floor. Your fantastic progress on scope 3 emissions, is that typical in your country?
Well, it is not typical. It is a work that has represent a cultural change. It is there is a big motivation in our university. We are working in a network with the universities, our group, as I said before, in our direction of sustainability, our Institute of Sustainable Development are leading in the country this topic and this initiative. So it is not typical now for other institutions, but we aim and hope that in the near future that could be every time more and more common.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to change the question I'm going to ask to everyone. Someone has commented in the chat about great examples of supporting student activism. So Marlon, quick one for you, just in 1 minute, have you got any encouraging stories about student activism within your institution?
Actually, first we need to recognize that the largest stakeholders are the students in the campus. And we organize them into organizations. We even have what we call a Council of Student Organization. This is an organization composed of the different organizations within the campus. And they have a very, very strong voice in terms of implementations in programs inside the university.
Great, brilliant. Alejandro?
Well, I have an example with the first building, the Edificio El Nogal, the El Nogal building. Students create a green roof with our initiative. These are a plain space, and they say, oh, okay, I want to give a green roof and urban ecosystem and create a very beautiful space. And they inspired us as professors and researchers to do another things. The students have a big capability, and maybe the professors don't see all of this really.
Fantastic. Great to be inspired by the students. Ignacio, have you got any examples?
Yeah, the example that I can say is that in 2010, when I started as a president of the university, we were working on our developmental plan for 5 years. And the students were the ones that pointed out that at that time, 12 years ago, they were not present the issues of sustainability that they wanted. And we met with them, and we understood their position, and we fully support them. So I can say that in our institutions, the students put the initial flame, the initial seed of sustainability, and that's, I guess, is something that we have to repeat every time, because the young people in our universities are the ones that are more sensitive to all these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to all our speakers. We are out of time. It would have been great to talk a little bit more about climate justice, lots of things to think about in our race to zero. But we are out of time. Thank you very much for the links that you're sharing. If anyone is interested, there's some links in the chat to follow. Our next session is in 20 minutes back on the plenary stage. We'll be talking about what we can do post-pandemic and how we can build back better, and what's important in terms of international working together and building back better. Our colleagues from India, Canada and Switzerland will have some student input on that. If you have time, it would be great if you could go back and rate the session very quickly, stars out of 5, and any comments that you have about the session. Thank you so much for everyone who's attended, and I hope you enjoy 20 minutes of a bit of a break, and we'll see you in the plenary session very soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.